Well, I'm impressed the fact that you listened to a couple of shows and still came on.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit too rude to cancel last minute, so.
There's the honesty.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the show, everyone. How are you doing, Mr. Nick?
I'm good. Nice to see you, my little buddy.
I know. I love just hanging out with you. Even if all we do is me and you chat,
And we're across the pond and back in the motherland, I should say, not fatherland. Fatherland's rather goose-steppy, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's motherland.
I think the fatherland is across it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, across the English Channel, where Cheryl and I went diving the other day. We did a dive in the English Channel.
Oh, yes. Yeah, your pictures looked awesome. That was really cool. So I have to talk about that in a little bit. So we've got a really awesome guest who is also from over in that neck of the woods. Maybe you should holler at him. But Daniel Hurst, and we're going to talk to him here just shortly. But first, I do believe we have a listener question today.
We do, from Shannon McLaughlin of Colorado. Thank you for the question, Shannon. Do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few people will find? Easter eggs for your fans or anything just for you? Good question.
All the time. Honestly, so the biggest thing I do is the first person who reads my stuff ever is my wife, Ashley. And so I will drop jokes in there that are only for her.
That's so cool.
So when she makes notes, like, I know Cheryl reads yours as well, but Ashley's number one note for me is just in parentheses the words eye roll. So if I say something that she's like, ugh. But if I put one in there that she's funny, she puts a little this, ah, ha, 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 and that always makes my day because then she gets it. So,
that's so cool.
But other than that, yeah, I do slip some other things in there. There are a few things in especially some of my older books. But, I've even just pulled some characters from, in one of my books, I pulled a character from my Max Sawyer series and brought him over and didn't say anything. And honestly, only one reader commented that he even caught it because it was just kind of just use the name and that was it. But that's about it. How about you, sir?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love Easter eggs. Yeah. Anything that's from earlier books or across the, obviously my AJ and Nora books are both in the same environment in the Cayman Islands. So it's rife for dropping little bits and pieces in there. It's a lot of fun.
It's fun. We create a whole universe so they can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Drop.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love doing a reference to an old movie or a song or something like that.
Completely. Yes. I drop songs in there. I drop movie quotes every now and again, something funny, whatever just kind of strikes my fancy. So
cool. Let's chat with Daniel.
Yes. Here's our Amazon UK Kindle chart topping author. He writes psychological thrillers. So let's welcome Daniel Hurst. Welcome to the show, Daniel. It's great to have you here. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me, guys.
Where are you right now? You're over in the UK as well with Nick, but what part?
Yeah, I am just north of Manchester in a town called Bolton. I don't know if it's famous. I don't think it is, unfortunately. But I'm going to try and make it famous with my author career.
It's famous for having Daniel Hurst. Otherwise,
Daniel Hurst,
sure.
Yes.
It might be infamous for a few things. It's not exactly a beach resort town.
Was it named after Michael Bolton? Maybe that would be.
Come on, Doug.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Good Lord. Daniel, why don't you give us a little bit of background on how you got involved in writing?
Yeah, sure. So it was always the dream, the big childhood dream. When I was 5, 6, 7, I used to write stories for my mum and dad. And I'm sure they used to think, what the hell is this? What have you just given me? It's not, it's just a childhood kind of whimsical thing that I was doing. I'm sure they thought it was just a phase that I was going through. But it carried on my entire into adulthood. It was always something that I knew I wanted to do, but obviously you get older and then you kind of, the real world kind of teaches you that, that's not the kind of job you can do. You need to get a normal job. So that's what I did. Got an office job for several years, but it was always kind of bugging me in the back of my mind. And whenever I had a spare minute, I would kind of jot down some ideas. I'd come home from work after a particularly bad day and just kind of start writing a story and work on things. And it was when I got married in 2019 that I just thought, I'm getting old now, the next step will be kids in a house and all the serious grown-up stuff. So if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. I heard the Self-Publishing Show podcast with James Blatch, and that kind of set me on the path of self-publishing. And so it was during COVID I started, during 2020. And because I didn't know it was going to work, I kind of overdid it and just poured out every single idea that I ever had just into just multiple books. And fortunately, in 2021, I went full-time, and I've kind of almost sped up ever since, just to make sure this isn't just a dream and it's not going to end. And I've been doing it now for about three and a half years full-time.
Yeah, actually, you and I started about the same time. But unlike you, I haven't hit number one on Kindle in the UK. You hit overall number one there, right?
Yeah, with The Doctor's Wife. So that was, I think February the 17th last year. Not that I can remember the date specifically. That was with my publisher, Booker Cho. So that was obviously a pretty exciting moment. I think obviously quite a bit of fortune goes into hitting number one, because it kind of depends on the timing and who's got books out when. And
it doesn't matter. You still hit number one, even if the timing.
Yeah, it's not easy to do.
A lot of effort, and don't kid yourself. That's impressive. So
yeah, you sell a lot of books to hit number one. So congrats. That's really cool. So I got to dive in right away, because I'm just dying to ask you about this. So when I started researching and stuff, I'm like, wait a second. He has all female protagonists. They're all female, and you write a lot of first-person female. So why did that come about, and how did that come about?
Yes, it's interesting, because I never kind of set out to do that. But my first self-published book back in 2020, I just kind of had all these ideas, and I just started writing. And the first character I wrote was a female. She was running through the underground tube system in London. And it's kind of, for some reason, the first person I wrote was a female, when you would assume as a man, the first person I would write would be a male. And then as I got more into the genre of psych thrillers, I obviously understood that the readership tends to be more female than male. So then it made more sense to write female characters. But I still find it almost easier to write females than males. But I wish it kind of applied to real life, where I feel like I can understand women when I write them, but actually in reality, I've still got no idea.
So it doesn't help any, because Nick has all female protagonists too, and so I thought maybe it helped you understand women.
No, my wife can kind of tell you
that. Apparently not. Huh? Not your wife. Does your wife read your stuff, Daniel?
Yeah, she used to, and then I kind of got so many books that she couldn't keep up, and then she's fallen behind.
So I guess we were talking about that in our intro. Like, my wife reads ours. I know Nick's, Cheryl does too. But do they ever look at you and go, this isn't what a woman would do?
I'm not sure if I've had that. I've had definitely things that have happened in books, and people say that would never happen. And then I obviously say it's fiction, so I can do what I want.
Yeah, I mean, let's go. Jason Bourne, Jack Reacher, the list goes on, right? They all do the impossible. So I think most of our stuff's pretty tame compared. So cool. So the other thing that you do a lot is you write from the antagonist's point of view. It's the killer's point of view in first person. Quite a few of the blurbs I read. So that's an interesting take on it as well. And how deliberate is that, and how often do you do that?
Yeah. Again, that was something that kind of became quite natural when I was writing a story, and you've got two opposing characters, whether it's the husband and the wife, and maybe one of them's got a secret. If you kind of give that opposing side, then obviously the reader then is in on the secret. So one of the characters might be seemingly going through the story and it seems like not much is happening. But if you know the other side and there's a secret going on, that just makes everything seem more interesting. So, yeah, I've always kind of, if there's the husband who's having an affair and it's like you've got his chapter, then you go back to the wife, straight away the reader's going to be thinking, oh, I feel so sorry for this character, because she's got no idea that the husband is this bad person, or vice versa. So, yeah, it's quite a good kind of narrative device to just give both sides.
So, and you write domestic thrillers and psychological, there's a lot of standalones, and you do a little bit of standalones and short series. So, what do you like best about either one? I mean, is there a strategy to what you're trying to do? Or today I feel like just writing one about person X and not involving anybody else. So
yeah, so I was very much standalone because you get that kind of exciting idea for a one-off story and you just kind of want to get that out as quick as possible. And then you get the next exciting idea that's not connected and you just want to jump onto that. But it was Bookachore that after the success of A Doctor's Wife, when it went to number one, they said, obviously, like, let's try and do a sequel to this. And I'd written it as a standalone. So that was quite initially I was kind of resistant to it, but then I thought it's quite a good kind of writing challenge to see if I can turn a standalone into a sequel, and then ended up becoming 4 books. And I have now seen the benefit of, going back to characters, and there's so much more you can do with them than what I was doing before. And obviously readers get invested in the same character. That's
got to be tricky though, because you wrote it as a standalone and now it's like you concluded it. Good job you didn't kill him. And it makes it hard.
Well, you could do it as a prequel.
Everything's a prequel flashback, going back of it a little bit further. So that must have taken quite a bit of scheming to kind of go, okay, I've got this complete story now, and I've got to pull this character out. Because some characters, if your character is like a police officer or something, they go on to the next case. And that's how most series are done. They're done around. They have some job that requires them getting involved in these things. But if they're not, they're just average Joe that this shit happened to them. And now that you've got to invent 3 more bad things, that has to be tricky as heck.
Yeah, it's interesting because I did 4 books in the Doctor's Wife series. And if I'd known it was going to end up being 4 books, and this isn't a spoiler because you can get it straight away, the Doctor dies in the first chapter of the first book. And if I'd known it was going to be 4 books, I wouldn't have killed him off so quick.
He needed to hang around a little longer.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier to keep going.
Yeah.
You have the
so in hindsight, he could have. I could have got a bit more like that character. But I kind of approached it as, okay, this is a creative, challenge. Can I, as if I was almost on a writing course, and someone set me the challenge of, you finish your story, but if you had to do one more, what would you do? And then that kind of kept it fun, and it kind of made me come at it at a different angle rather than just being, no, I'm a standalone guy, I don't want to do series.
So are there more plans for more series, or do you have any thoughts? And next time, will you think about it ahead of time and like plan out a 4-book arc?
Yeah, definitely plan ahead of time. I've just had a book out on the 1st of July called The Perfect Nurse, and that's the first in the series. So we've gone with a medical theme again after the success of The Doctor.
I was going to say, do you have a medical background, or are you just throwing it out there like, I just like doctors and nurses?
Yeah, absolutely no medical background whatsoever. It's also winging it. But again, it's fiction.
I had a doctor once that winged it too, and it's okay. So
okay, so you mentioned you're with Bookachore for some of the stuff that you're doing. You had another publisher, I think, earlier on, and you're doing some indie stuff. How do you juggle that? I mean, Bookachore are pretty big, and they're a bit of a juggernaut these days in indie publishing. It sounds weird in indie publishing, but they are, because they're not like trad publishers, but then not indie anymore. They're sort of handling that piece in between. So does their stuff take priority, and then you fill in between with other stuff? How do you balance that?
Yeah, so it kind of, at first I didn't want to kind of give up the indie side because that was how I started, and I felt very passionate about self-publishing. But then I could see that they had the potential to reach more readers, and there was so many avenues that I wasn't going into with audio and paperback and translations. And now as it goes on, I'm kind of, I guess, going more towards the Bookachore side, and I'm still kind of dropping in with the indie books every now and again because I feel like if I stop doing that, I'll almost forget how to use KDP and that kind of thing.
I forget about it every time I go to load a book. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like I've messaged Nick before. I can't figure out what I'm doing. And he's like, oh.
Well, they change one thing every time too. When you get in there, you're like, oh, that's new. What is that now?
It's terrible.
It is quite nice to just focus on the story, and then I'll send it off to them. And then if there's any issues with the Amazon page, then they can deal with customer service, and I don't have to. So.
And the marketing, they're doing the marketing for you.
Oh yeah. So actually, like, speaking of that, like, so with any marketing you do, like, how do you connect with your readers? Are you use social media and newsletters? Once they kind of get in there, how do you engage with them?
Yeah, so something that I started almost immediately was the newsletter, and I wanted to do that every week. I know some authors maybe do it once a month or just when they've got a new book. But I just felt almost like so allergic to being a salesman. I didn't just want to pop up when I've had something to sell. Yeah, so I wanted to talk to people and kind of share my personal life without, here's a new book, buy this, buy this. So, and I also knew I was going to be quite quick once I got going. So I thought, if I'm doing a book a month, I need to kind of chip in every week and just say hi and share some photos of me, because then it's not just, I've got books, buy them. It's, here's what I've been up to. And it's almost like the book is the afterthought in my newsletter, because the more I do it, the more I just want to share, like, me, my wife, my daughter, my things I've been doing. And then I'll mention a book after that, rather than just being about the book. It's the thing I enjoy. I know quite a few authors don't enjoy the newsletter side of things, but I've always enjoyed it. I've almost got to cut out content every week because I've got too much to put in there.
I think part of the reason people don't enjoy it is they don't get into the habit of doing it. I think once you get in that habit, you're doing it once a week. I try to do mine fairly regularly. I think that once you get into that habit, just shooting out an email to them isn't overly difficult, and you realize you have more to talk about. And I think most authors kind of need to work on that, in my opinion. Like, they get worried about bombarding them, and really your readers love to hear from you. So,
yeah, especially personal stuff like you were talking about, Daniel. If you're sharing stuff, kids and dogs are pretty good. I'm going to buy a kid just to use them for my newsletter.
I think that's frowned upon even over there.
No, it's easy.
It's easy. Facebook Marketplace has all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can buy a kid.
You can always nip down to some of the places in France, in Spain, you can buy kids cheap. All right, let's move on before we get a letter from that one.
We apologize to France and Spain before you. We're going to get letters now. So.
Yeah. What tools did you use to build your newsletter list, Daniel? What's been the most effective thing for you?
Yeah, so when I started, I tried the usual kind of giveaways and short story, book funnel, those kind of things. And then I decided to actually just write a full book, which is about 60,000 words. And then started running Facebook ads to that book. And then also that gets people on the email list. And instead of giving them just that kind of short 5,000 words book teaser, it was actually a full story. And then obviously I hope that would kind of entice them to then go on and buy all the other books that I had. So yeah, it's just, and I've had that Facebook, I basically got one ad in the UK, one in the US, small budget per day, but I've kind of had it running now for about 2 or 3 years. And that just kind of consistently brings in new people. Obviously, some of them just want the free book and then they'll never do anything else, but it's nice to get actual readers.
Do you do any like automation, like when you're setting up your newsletter so it's automated for them right off the bat too? Is that something?
Yes, I've got the welcome email set up. It'll kind of say who I am, which I need to update because I think it's about 4 years old and, there's nothing on, all the pictures are quite old now. But yeah, the automated email. And then obviously once they're on the email list, quite quickly, every 7 days, they're going to get an email from me.
And you got to put in where you bought the kid. Although really all you need to do is rent one, just so y'all know. I mean, having had kids, all you need to do is rent one and just get
now
the
you're
pictures.
getting letters. Direct them to Doug. Doug's carrying on with this thing. So once a week is quite often that, there's the romance author gang. They send out a lot. They're pretty prolific with their newsletters, I've noticed, as a genre. And the sort of mystery thriller tend to be the more once a month gang. And I'm sure there's lots that go out of that trend, but that seems to be more kind of the trend. So once a week is quite often for our genre. And so you've really directed that. How long are they? Let me ask you that. How long is your normal newsletter? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the words, but it would be a small section about what I've done in the past 7 days, sort of personal stuff. Then there'll be a book news section, which will either be, I've got a book coming or I've had a book just out. Thank you for buying. Here's an update on what I'm writing at the moment. And then I've got a small part, which is like a reader of the week. So readers can email me and I'll say the name, where they come from, who's the favourite author, what they're reading at the moment, and a fun fact about themselves, which again was a way of me not just making the whole thing about myself. It's kind of, there's that section where people can kind of, it's not just me. Because again, I was just so conscious of not being like, here I am, buy my things. It's like, I don't want to be a salesman. And then that's it. Then I end it.
Yeah, that's super interactive.
But one thing I would kind of, the biggest piece of advice I would pass on to any authors that are listening, if you're starting out, is find, obviously the writing is the thing you enjoy the most, but then aside from that, there's so many other things you can do with the newsletter, Facebook ads, Amazon. Just kind of zero in on 1 or 2 things that you enjoy and just do that. So I knew I would enjoy sending an email every week to my readers. So that's why I do it every week. Whereas if you don't enjoy that side, then spend more time on another side.
coming from the UK, and this is something that Nick and I talked about. Where do you focus like your marketing? I mean, do you focusing it on the UK or the US, or are you just going to go? Or you do a little bit of both? I mean, you said you have one Facebook ad and for the reader magnet in both, but are you doing other marketing that you're focusing a certain way?
Yes, it's mainly just Facebook ads, and I think I started UK when I begun just because I'm in the UK, so it seemed more exciting to go higher in the charts in the UK than anywhere else. But then obviously America is much bigger, there's more readers, so you need to kind of advertise to them as well. And then I'll do some kind of small stuff in Australia and Canada, but yeah, it is mainly just US and UK.
From my standpoint, I'm mostly US, and while I do sell and market there, I don't see a correlation. But do you see a correlation in when you hit number one in UK that your sales in the US also follow that trend and go up?
Yeah, I've seen my readership has definitely grown bigger in the US, but kind of annoyingly, because there's so many more people, you can have more readers in the US, but you don't go as high. So you're like, oh, I'm 200 in the charts in the US, but I'm top 10 in the UK. But which is it's kind of almost, the US is so much bigger that it makes the UK seem like it's not as. But I think it'll always be more exciting to me for the UK side of things, just because that's where I'm from. So it just seems more real.
Have you seen or have the publishers talked to you and done anything different in terms of different covers for UK versus and different blurbs for UK versus US?
Or even other countries? Like you said, you have translations. Yeah, I'm curious about that too. So
yeah, no, as far as I know, I think it's all been the same covers so far, same blurbs. Actually, saying that, they have done some translations in Denmark and Spain. I think they've got different covers. But in terms of US and UK, it's been the same.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of anybody doing different stuff for US and UK, but definitely for like German and foreign translation markets. Now, on another subject, so you're in KU, and you're in KU across the board, aren't you?
Yeah, all books, KU.
That's interesting for Bookature, because they're normally wide, aren't they? How did that come about? Was that a choice from a joint decision or their decision, or?
Yeah, so when we first started speaking, obviously they kind of wanted some stats from my side in the kind of self-publishing side of things. But even before that, I just said to them, look, I could see from my readership, it's mostly KU, so it's not going to work if we kind of go wide. I mean, it might work in the end, but if you want kind of more of an instant kind of bit of success, I can see that KU is where my readers are, and I don't want to kind of take away from that. So yeah, I think for me, obviously every author is different, but for me, it's very much KU dominated.
So on the other big question that everyone asks all of us, I know, is, are you a pantser or a plotter, or a middle of the road like Nick and I are?
Yeah, so I was 100% pantser when I started writing. I think because I was impatient, I just had the idea and just wanted to get it out. And I guess as well because I didn't know if anyone was ever going to read it, so I'm not going to spend too much time, plotting a story. I'm just going to type it. And it was only when I started working with publishers that they obviously wanted to see some kind of structure and outline before they committed to a book. So then I started outlining, which I did not enjoy at the beginning, because I still think that you can have the best twists when you don't actually know where the story's going as you're writing it. Because if you don't know, then the reader's got no chance of knowing. But I can also see the benefit in planning ahead, and you can kind of drop in all the seeds and where things are going. So yeah, I am now more, I don't really pants anymore. I did a book last year, which is the first one in a while, just as a kind of writing exercise again. I'm going to pants it and have some fun. But then it's actually quite stressful to do that. So
that's fair, yeah. So and how many books do you do like a year? How many books are you putting out a year?
Yes, it was kind of about a book a month, maybe not quite, maybe 10 books a year. I've slowed down a bit. I think people would still look at me and think I've not slowed down, but obviously day to day now, I've got a 1-year-old daughter, I've definitely slowed down, but I'm still quite fast in terms of I could get 3,000 or 4,000 words a day.
That's good. Yeah, that's pounding them out. So I'm interested in hearing about your 20-minute series. You did how many books in that? Did you do 20 in it?
20, yeah. That was my wife's idea.
20-minute series. Yeah, perfect. How did that work for you? And was that fun to do?
Yeah, so that was, when I first started self-publishing, it was the 20 minutes. Part of it, I think, was because all the advice in the self-publishing world was you have to do a series. So I kind of went with that at first. And it was also me, I guess, making some of the mistakes that every author makes, where you don't necessarily write in one genre when you begin. You kind of have a mishmash of ideas. And if anyone's read the 20-minute series, they will know that it is an absolute mishmash of horror, romance, comedy. There's all different characters. But it was so much fun to write. It was obviously like the most creative thing I've done. And it was my I was teaching myself when I was publishing those books, it was my kind of lessons on self-publishing and KDP. I could kind of see that it wasn't taking off as well as, a standalone book would. But once I'd committed to it and there was readers that were invested in it, and then my wife said, oh, if it's called 20 minutes, you've got to do 20 in the series, which was nice of her to make me do all that extra work.
another 8.
Yeah, but it was such good fun to write. And I still get emails now from people saying, are you going to do any more or anything in that kind of world? Because it's quite different to what I do now.
And you go, no, it's not a 21-minute series. It's the 20-minute series. Yeah. Sorry. That number's set. Sorry.
So going back to the earlier subject of writing female protagonists, do you think it's helped you, hurt you, or made no difference the fact that you're a male author, not disguising the fact that you're a male author, because there's some male authors out there that are writing under female pen names when they write female protagonists. So how do you feel that stands? I mean, I'm sure you've had email feedback on you do a great job writing from the female perspective, or vice versa sometimes, right?
Yeah, I've definitely had emails where people say you must actually be a woman and for some reason you're pretending to be a man.
That's the greatest compliment.
Yeah.
Greatest compliment.
I didn't mean that to use as a compliment, Nick. Sorry.
Yes, I'm quite, I always say this, I'm quite a simple person. I never planned ahead. I'm not really got a business mind. So it wasn't a strategy to just write female characters or to, advertise myself as a man when I am a man. It was just, here I am. I've got an idea. Here it is. Start writing. And it is what it is. So I don't actually put that too much thought into it, which I know some authors are very much more kind of business minded and strategic. I just kind of pour out the idea in my head and it is what it is. And sometimes it's just a female character. Sometimes it's the man and the woman. Sometimes I've got child characters, which are quite difficult to write because you can't obviously write it as an adult would think. You've got to kind of put in the childish mindset. So I've not done that too often, but that's another creative kind of fun exercise to write an 8-year-old girl and think, okay, what would she think in this situation?
So quick question here. It's one we ask all of our authors that come on here, but what do you think is your author superpower?
Ooh, that is a good question. Yeah, I went for a walk this afternoon and I had a couple of episodes of your podcast on because I thought I need to get in there. I need to see what's coming. I need to be prepared for this. And you asked that question, so I thought, what would I say to that question? And then being an absolute idiot, I forgot about it and didn't come up with an answer. So here we go.
Yeah, you didn't. You even asked yourself and then forgot to answer it. Well, I'm impressed the fact that you listened to a couple of shows and still came on.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit too rude to cancel last minute. So
there's the honesty. All right, Daniel, now you've got to answer the question. We've given you enough time to squirm. Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm someone that I get inspired by people who work hard more than the talent side of things. So very much when I began my author career, I wasn't just kind of thinking, I'm going to write one story and it's going to be the best story ever and people are going to be amazed. I was like, no, I'm just going to just put all my effort and work so hard that it's almost impossible to fail. And I almost take more pride in, because people can see I've got so many books and some people think, maybe he's not that good because he's had to write so many books, as opposed to somebody who writes two books and has a bestseller. But I almost take more pride in the fact that I'm a grinder, I'm a hard worker. I enjoy that side of things. So I think my superpower is I enjoy the hard work and the discipline and the consistency that it takes to be an author, rather than kind of staring out the window, waiting for an idea to strike, being very whimsical about it. I'm very much, let's just sit down and crack on and let's get it done.
At some point, to make a living at it, it is a business and it is work, and you have to do it. Yeah.
I gotta say, so what I'm hearing is he's saying is I can't just stare out the window and write a book, and that's very disappointing, to be honest.
It is very disappointing to learn that, and we all learn it at some stage.
I've been doing this for a long time, and I that's why I'm not doing very well. No, it is true. I think I agree with you. I think if you're really like to authors out there who want to make it a business. If you're not treating it like a business and it's just a hobby or something you do, then you're not going to find that success.
Which is great, but you've got to recognize that that's what it is. Yeah. So, and I think, and one other comment on that, Daniel, because I mean, you said that, some people look and say, oh, you've got so many books out, and maybe he's not the best author because he has to pound them out like that. I think it's only another author that might even think that way. A reader, who are the people that really count, I don't think will ever think that way. They'll just think, oh, good, he's got lots more books for me to read.
You probably still don't write fast enough for some of your diehard readers. Like finish it on, you got one on July 1st, you got one coming out on August 1st, and there's somewhere in between going, I could have read 4 more.
And they did. They read probably 20 more books. There's, these voracious readers knocking out a book a day. And there's a surprisingly large amount of them, which is wonderful for us.
Yeah, it's one of those things where once you give the reader their expectations so they know I'm quite quick, then they're just going to expect that all the time now. So if I just took 6 months off, they'd be like, what's happened?
Yeah, that is a problem. When you go, I'm going to slow down a little bit, you're going to get some letters.
Yeah.
So,
what's going on?
All right. Well, we've got one more thing.
We have one more
Let's
question.
do it. Get the wheel.
We have if you've listened, then we have the wheel of questions here. It's a fabulous thing.
That was a really long,
that was a good spin. Yeah. So, okay. So what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself since you started your author career?
I would say that it's quite good to have a healthy dose of paranoia. And what I mean by that is you kind of don't get complacent. You don't just sit back and think, yeah, I've had a number 1 book. Let's just take the day off. Let's take the week off. If you have this paranoia at the back of your mind that one day everyone's going to get bored with your books and stop reading, it makes you keep trying to come up with new ideas and conversing with your readers. A kind of story to finish with. The day my book went to number 1, which was February the 17th, 2023, 10:57 p.m. Not that it went in. I was actually almost, in a stupid way, I was almost annoyed because that day I woke up and I had in my mind, I'm going to write 5,000 words on my next book. And then because things went mad on social media, my publisher was emailing me and I had so much going on. My wife was like, we need to, celebrate this occasion. I was almost annoyed. I was like, I can't do my 5,000 words that I need to do for my next book, which is a stupid thing to do because I should have just enjoyed the moment. So I think, but in some ways, obviously, my success has come because I've got that kind of voice in the back of my head, like, don't take it for granted, don't slow down, keep going, make the most of it, enjoy yourself. So, yeah, I think that's what I've learned about myself. It's good to have that kind of side.
Now, I'm doing a little mental math here. So this was 22 and your kid is a year old and we're 24. You did celebrate.
Yeah.
On that note, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, Daniel, and best of luck. And I'm sure you're about to have another number 1 bestseller.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's so great to have you come on today.
That was great.
He was awesome.
What a lovely chap.
Yeah, and I mean, he talked about like some of the stuff. I mean, obviously you have ruled with female protagonists because you do. I joked with you about it, but your female protagonists are awesome. I say that as a white man, but still think they're good. Yeah, so I think that's it's cool, and I'm impressed with anybody who can do that and pull it off well. And I know you do, and Daniel does, and so a few other men who have done it do it pretty well. But it's a feat.
It's interesting because he, when we asked him, why did you end up doing this? And it was like, well, it was just that was the story I had to start with. And then it seemed to work in my head again. And it just sort of fell into it. And I feel the same way. People ask me, why do you write female protagonists? I don't have a brilliant answer for it. Pamela asked me on her Wine and Crime show that we've both been on the last few weeks. Pamela Fagan-Hutchins, great show you can catch where she interviews authors called Crime and Wine. Yeah, I don't have a great reason. It just sort of played out that way. That's how the story was in my head. It was, and I feel like Daniel had kind of, that's how he fell into it the same way. There's the challenge of it. There's the rhythm of it. There's all those things. That's kind of what we do. It would be odd for me to write a male protagonist now. I've done that in some of the collabs with the Tropical Authors guys, like Timeless and that.
Yeah, but Not really, because I mean, you did, but that was kind of a carried over. It's not like you created the protagonist.
Well, I did actually, but
well, you did actually because you started all of them. So
those couple.
Never mind, a couple, but you still, you still did that with the mindset.
He was a visitor into our world, so into our characters. The other interesting thing from Daniel there that was, his, which is kind of an English thing a little bit, is his healthy paranoia, as he calls it. Like it might all go to shit at any time. Your first reaction to that is, well, healthy and paranoia aren't normally used in the same sentence. And it sounds like it's, oh my, you feel bad. But
it's motivating him. It's his little apple on a string. He kind of keeps reaching for it because he doesn't want to go away. And to some extent, we all kind of do that, I think. And he can brand it and name it what it is. So.
Yeah, I mean, and he obviously has a fantastic work ethic, and we touched on that in the chat with him. That it is a business, it is work. There's going to be days that feel like work, and then there are often the days where you're not writing and doing other stuff. But occasionally, there's days where you're writing where it feels like work. And if you're going to make it in this business, and you're going to put out produce enough books to make a go of it, especially as an indie author. There's no one way of doing it, but ultimately at the end of the day, unless you get struck by the lucky lightning.
Which people do, but for the most part, when I talk to, new fledgling authors who are like, ask me advice, one of the things the first thing I'll tell them or ask the question up front is, what do you want to do with it? I mean, there's nothing wrong with people who want to write to do it as a hobby. There's nothing wrong with people who want to write as therapy. And then there's people who want to write like we do and make it a business. And you have to approach each of them differently, especially the business side of it, because if we decided to go open a pizza place and we didn't treat it like a business, we wouldn't stay in business. We wouldn't be serving pizza for very long. So
yeah, if we just opened nights that we feel like it, we open and you can come and have pizza.
Right. Yeah. Or hey, I'm just going to give away my books to all my family or I'll give away my pizza to all my family. Then I don't have, I'm not making any money and they're just going to complain about the pizza because that's what family does. So,
but if you are opening a pizza restaurant and you do want to just give away pizzas to people, we are your people.
We do like some pizza. So,
I do love me some pizza. All right. Well, this was a fun show. Thank you, Daniel, again for coming on. And folks, thank you for listening. We do really appreciate it. Please check out our show notes. There'll be links in there to our guest info where you can find Daniel and Daniel's books. There'll also be our stuff and our social media and all that good stuff. If you're on the dreaded Facebook, find Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, but also find the Two Authors podcast. We have a little page on there that we're trying to get going. And
please just share some things. Give us some listener questions. We need some new listener questions. And
yeah. Email us some listener questions. We love those. All right. Till next time. Be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favorite platform for alerts on new shows coming every 2 weeks.